Hello everyone and welcome to this Nintendo Life episode 145. My name is NBZ and we're in your feed. A little bit earlier than usual as we mentioned last time because in just a few days we're going to be seeing Nintendo at E3 coming out and talking about the things that they want to talk about, whatever those may be. I am of course joined as always by Bally to discuss those things.
This E3 hype train, it's here already. I feel like end of May, June just kind of whizzed by and we're here.
Kind of did.
Coming.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, it's one of those weird things, right? Because E3 is like this yearly thing and it happens every year. But we talked about it before, but I feel with the Game Awards happening at like the end of the year, it more like feels like we're in this 6-month period now, where it's like after E3 happens, it's like, okay, we've got this rolling 6 months until the Game Awards, which is when we may get some more announcements. But the other thing with Nintendo is like we're only ever about 2 or 3 months out from some kind of thing because, you know, directs are just popping up everywhere, including one that just happened literally, so close to E3, which is a Pokemon Direct that I guess we'll have a little bit of a chat about at the start of this show because, to be frank, we don't really have much time to put it anywhere else. There's lots of things to discuss before E3, and obviously when E3 happens for Nintendo, we're going to be talking about the things they announce on the day during that Direct. So yeah, maybe we want to chat a little bit about, you know, the Pokemon Direct and some stuff that happened before we get started on the show. But Bally, tell the people what we are going to be talking about today.
We're going to have a 2-segment show this time. First segment, we're going to have a quick chat about the Pokemon Direct that just happened. We're going to talk about the games that we have been playing. And then the second segment, we're going to go down our E3 predictions for Nintendo. So that's 3 serious ones and one that's a little more out there. And then we'll mention a few of your own predictions that you people have written into us. So thank you very much for those. 2-segment show.
Absolutely. Cool. So let's talk about Pocket Monsters, Bally. The latest craze, you know, just only 20 years young, they say. And they're back with the latest entry, Pokemon Sword and Shield, for which they showed a Nintendo Direct today, about 15 minutes in length, and a lot of cool things in there for sure. I think top level impression from me is, hey, it's not breaking the bank, it's not revolutionary, and we kind of knew this already, but there are some exciting things that they're doing, which could potentially, you know, make this game a little bit more fresh feeling as well as indicate potential for the future. What's your kind of top level thoughts on the Direct?
Really positive. I think that the most impactful part was actually that initial trailer at the start of the Direct where you're getting a much better sense of this world, the new camera angles. You can rotate the camera, that there's a sense of vast space and openness that is very unique to this Pokemon game, it feels like. And that's a big step up from what the camera angles and the scope and the scale felt like in the reveal of this game. It felt more open, but it felt even more open, especially with that first trailer. And I think we're almost at, you know, Pokemon open world-ish.
Yeah,
almost.
kind of.
It's getting closer at least, and a lot closer than I thought they were going to with what we've always said is a very safe series. Like it evolves very slowly. It iterates very small parts at a time.
Marginally, incrementally, you know, it's always on that track. Well, maybe let's talk about that then, because I do think that that's probably the most important thing that they showed off was they have these new areas in the game called wild areas, I believe. And I initially thought it was just one space. I thought it was just this one space outside of one of the cities, and, you know, you're going to have to run around. It seems like from the different biomes we see in the different environments that it's more the case that the interstitial parts between cities, essentially the overworld, right, which traditionally would be like Route 1, Route 2, where you have like a bit of grass and some trainers in between, stuff like that. That traditionally would be how you got between towns, and this seems like far more expanded and kind of eschewing the idea of traditional routes and far more focusing on that notion that, hey, it's this big space where you can see the Pokemon on the map, they are there, kind of like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where they were just around, you could run into them, and, you know, a lot of traversal things going on. So having the bike, obviously, but also there's a bike that goes across water we see in one shot. So there's some fun things there, and it just feels like there's a lot of open space that you can just run around in, and there's also a bunch of these places where you can do the raid battles, which we can touch on in a second, which have like these glowing red lights protruding from them where you can go and find those, and those seem to act as like meeting spots, I guess, for people online on which to tackle the kind of raid situations. But it's interesting because a lot of the other stuff in the trailer and from previous stuff that I've seen does show areas that look a bit more similar to traditional like routes where there are Pokemon trainers and you run into them and an exclamation mark appears over their head. So the thing I'm wondering is like, what is the split between the wild area and your traditional Pokemon route type thing? And how does it work? Like, how do you move between the two spaces? And is it like a whole different mode you load into? It's not really clear right now how traversal across the world will work at the moment.
No, and it is interesting because I thought, what's the gimmick going to be of this game? And they definitely revealed that it's going to be giant Godzilla-like Pokemon with their massive Pokeballs, and it's like, I can't remember what it's called, but they can charge up to this size for like 3 turns, and
it's called Dynamax, I believe.
Dynamax. I wanted to always say I can't remember what I wanted to say. It was like I wanted to say like Machinamax for some reason. I don't know, is that a thing?
No.
But anyway, it was like that was weird, and there's these stadiums, and the stadiums look really like intense.
They're basically football arenas, though.
Yeah,
like they are football stadiums. From like the greenness of the battlefield to the shape of them to a lot of things. I think obviously being set in the British Isles, it's invoking a lot of culture and stuff from over here. So it does make sense that. Here's the thing I want, Bally. I want some fucking pubs in this game. You know what I'm saying? Like, instead of going into a town and go to a Pokemon Center, you gotta head to the pub. That's what I'm looking for.
There's a lot of bagpipes going on in a lot of the sounds I noticed.
Yeah,
I am interested to see what British quirks there'll be. It's like, I'm just going to the Chippy,
right? And
soccer stadiums.
And how is Scotland represented as well, which is interesting. The more northern
mountains.
area. Right, yeah. So
is there going to be a kilt Pokemon?
Oh God, yeah. But it's interesting, right? Because they shot to one of the designers who is like, I'm the artist guy on this game, blah blah blah, and he's a British dude. Like, we have a British person making British Pokemon, ostensibly, which is a neat thing. And I remember when they did Black and White, and Black and White was set in more of an American setting. Like, you had the city that was basically New York, and they did have American designers design some of the Pokemon. It's how we ended up with a fucking ice cream as a Pokemon. So, I'm hoping we're getting something a bit more unique and interesting than that. And we also have a few new Pokemon revealed, some of which look really good. I mean, Woolwoo is the big stand. Or Wooloo, I don't know how. It's a little sheep. It's the cutest fucking sheep in the world. I love it. I think it's adorable. It looks very, very good. And there's another one called Dreadnought, which is kind of like, what if Blastoise regressed? The color palette to me was very Blastoise-esque, but he was on all fours. Kind of had like an Avalugg vibe to him, like kind of big and chunky, but also like, I don't know. He seems like a tanky kind of Pokemon.
Eats like iron and rocks and things, right?
Yeah, and there are a lot of Pokemon like that and have that kind of thing to them. But he looked pretty neat. And the big crow as well. That's like a taxi service essentially. Corviknight, I believe, is it called. So yeah, knight being used as a word. We've got sheep. We've got a flower, which is basically a gossiping flower, which I have no idea what, I made jokes about it being, an old lady going to tea and gossiping with her friends, and then it evolves into an old lady with a giant fucking perm. So they have their stereotypes worked out here, which is, it's fun, and I think that they're going to do some fun things with the designs of this game. And speaking of which, we have the 2 legendary Pokemon, which are, I mean, they look pretty fucking dumb, I'm not going to lie. Like, they're wolves. One of them is a wolf with a giant shield on its face, and the other is a wolf that just holds a sword in its mouth. Look, there have been better legendary Pokemon from a design perspective. They're fine. Like, they're nothing I'm super excited about, but they're okay, whatever. And I think the thing that annoys me is that they kind of look the same. There's not really visual distinction between them. And the thing I love about X and Y was Yveltal and Xerneas are just diametric opposite. They look so different from each other. They're just completely different Pokemon.
That's true.
And this is just like, hey, it's the same kind of thing, but one of them has a fucking shield face and one of them is holding a knife. Good, great. Not really that exciting, and it doesn't really inspire me to buy shield over sword or sword over shield or whatever. I could flip a coin and not really worry. The only thing I'd worry about is if Wooloo is a exclusive, in which case I'm buying the game which has.
If they make Wooloo an exclusive, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah. Well, clearly, then one of the games are going to sell way more than the other, for sure.
Yeah.
Not that matters anymore, because like online trading and things is such it's such a thing of the past. The exclusive version differences, it just doesn't make any sense these days. But they still perpetuate it for tradition.
They don't need to sell link cables anymore. So what's the? It's not a big deal,
right?
Right. As you said, you just trade with your mates.
For sure. Yeah, basically. And then they have the raid battles, which I think is an interesting idea. Like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Yo, you're taken from MMOs now, are we? Or we're dipping into that Destiny / Division kind of idea of like everyone gets together to fight this really hard Pokemon." And raids traditionally in those types of games are always seen as like an end game challenge, as like the toughest thing you do in the game. I doubt it's going to be that tricky, right? Because Pokemon's a series that's never really known for its difficulty, but it seems like a fun cooperative mode that hasn't been done before, right? It's more of a single player PvE style thing, right? Because most of Pokemon Online is PvP, like player versus player, taking each other down. Whereas player versus environment has not really been a thing Pokemon has traditionally done outside of like Battle Tower in the past. I know that you could like co-op Battle Tower together, but this seems like a more unique thing in that sense. And it's interesting. I mean, again, like I've never been the biggest fan of gimmicks. I think that the gimmicks that have gone on in regards to, a lot of games in the series, starting with X and Y with Mega Evolutions and then going through like Z moves and now to this, it feels like they just flit from idea to idea and they never are consistent. They never keep them between games, and they're just like, oh, we just want to do a new different gimmick just cause we have to have one. And to be quite frank, I get it in terms of they want to have some, like, this is how marketing works, right? You have to have the feature. What is the new feature that you're going to sell your game on? And, Pokemon's one of those franchises, you kind of don't really need to do that. So it kind of frustrates me when they do persist along that ideology. But, what are you going to do? It's the modern state of Pokemon is they don't really go in the direction that I think a lot of people maybe want them to, but they don't need to really, because they can make infinite money doing whatever they want, which is fine. So.
But overall, I think it's all looking pretty good, and I'm interested.
Yeah,
I mean, we were just discussing the release date. It's difficult when there's a lot of games nearby that we want to play.
It's coming out the same day as a Star Wars video game from fucking Respawn. Yeah. Like, hello, my dude. This is tough choices being thrown our way, and then the week before that is Death Stranding. So
I think I'll end up beating it probably in 2020, but I'm gonna.
You will, yeah.
I'm gonna start it.
Yeah, no, I'll play it. I'll probably beat it in like 3 days, as I mentioned to you when I was texting you, because something about Pokemon is just like, I don't know, it's very easy to play. You just kind of sit there and just play it, and it just happens.
It just happens.
It just happens. I don't know. Pokemon's just a game that just happens to you. You don't happen to it; it happens to you. Very much so. So yeah, exciting stuff. Looking good. Hopefully that is, all the Pokemon news they need to discuss. They don't need to mention it during the E3 Direct. Take up more time.
What if they spend like 10 minutes revealing the starter evolutions or something at E3?
Fuck's sake, Bally, that will kill me inside. I will be screaming.
And then they'll link that up by one of them being like a Smash DLC.
Yeah, you can see it, can't you? You can really see it.
Anyway.
Fuck, Bally, why? Why do you have to be so truthful about Nintendo? It kills my excitement.
That's not one of my predictions for
no
segment.
No. Kills excitement, but hey. Anyway, yes, so that was fun. We'll, I'm sure, learn more about that. I imagine there'll be another Pokemon Direct in, say, October or something, like the month before it comes out, to firm up some more details and other nonsense like that. So we've not heard the last, probably, of Sword and Shield for now. But let's move on then to some video games that we have been playing. Bally, you went over to my house in Edinburgh and took my Labo VR that I left there for you.
I stole Labo VR complete with the blaster, the headset, and a box complete with a what do you call it? A spin wheel. What's it called?
I don't know.
A pinwheel.
Like a little
pinwheel.
Pinwheel. There you go.
A pinwheel to make. So I got the experience of creating something using the instructions with Labo VR,
but not before skipping through the instructions.
Not
right?
Before, yeah. So I had to. So I had to skip through the entirety of the instructions to make the headset. But I was able to not have to do that for the gun, and I was able to go straight into the gun.
Oh, that's good.
For some reason.
Great.
So it was weird. They're really keen that you had to see how the headset was made no matter what. So I was a bit like, all right, okay. And hey, it's VR. It works.
Right? It's pretty surprising how convincing it is as a VR product.
It's pretty surprising. I think that the level of design in like the world, the enemies with like the aliens and with the shooting game, and there's like 6 levels, and they're not tiny levels, they're meaty.
They're a couple of minutes each. Yeah,
I played all of them in one go, and I was like, this is fine. Like, this is fun. The kickback you get is very satisfying. It works well. There was one elastic band you left at the front that wasn't connected to anything, MBZ. I don't know if I was meant to link that onto something.
Oh, I don't know. No.
Well, there was no way I was going to go back through all the instructions to work out what it linked to, but it worked fine, so it didn't bother me. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm convinced by the cardboard, and what I mean by that is, I'm not a kid who's gonna keep playing that gun game again and again. So I'm happy to have my fill, and that was an interesting VR experience.
It's kind of the reason that like I went along with this idea of me buying it and then just leaving it there for you to play with, because after I've played it once, I don't really need to do it again, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I'm not really gonna go back to it a ton.
The thing I will say is that I think it's a really good pick up and play thing to show someone VR. Without having the faff of PSVR and the cables and a lot of modern VR solutions, like it's a bit of a setup hassle. Whereas with this, it's very much like, as I talked about, I handed it to my mum and dad, and like instantly they were in the game and shooting and using the thing. And I think the tactile nature of the gun is very approachable, right? It's just really easy to just jump in and use and have fun with. And for me especially, and I obviously I think you can compare it to Astrobot however you like, but for me, when it came to some of the bosses, some of the scale on that stuff I just thought was incredibly impressive as someone who hasn't seen things like that in VR before, and I feel like it probably didn't have as much of an impact on you because you've probably done that experience but better, right?
Yeah, and it is a real step down even from PSVR in terms of like that visual quality, and when when you're in it for like more than a few minutes, it is like your eyes are very cognizant of like the big pixels that you're seeing, and like so that's neither here nor there really, because it is so cheap. My biggest criticism is the actual cardboard, and your theory of like, yeah, it's really good to just try out. I'd only be confident with maybe 5 to 10 more people trying it out, and then after about the 10th person, assuming they've not had too many drinks or something, like I just feel like that gun is just going to eventually give up the ghost. And
I don't know. I was thinking about this, right, because obviously elastic bands are not things that are designed to last.
It's more like the handle and you gripping it, and it's not just the elastic bands.
Well, I don't know. Well, yeah, I feel like the cardboard.
Also, remember, you were the first person using it, not the third or whatever number I am. So
yeah, sure. Like I totally get that. I do think that it is very sturdy. Right, like I do think that when I built it, I was like, this feels strong. This feels like it can last. It feels like a Nintendo product in the traditional sense of like the Game Boy, where you fucking throw it against a brick and it will survive. Obviously, it's not going to do that, but it did feel to me that it would surprise you how long it would last for. And I definitely, like, I get what you're saying, but I do feel that it has a longer life in it than you're predicting.
Perhaps, and as I said, I'm prepared to play through those missions once and maybe go back to it sometime, maybe. But like but if I was a kid who wanted to like this, I only owned a Switch. This was my one VR experience. I wanted to play it day in, day out. I loved that gun. It wouldn't last very long. Like I really do believe like it's not designed for consistent use.
I think you underestimate how much kids like to do the same thing again and again, and what we were like when we were younger, playing the same things again.
That's my point. Like they'll break it. That's what I mean.
Oh right, okay, because they are playing.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, yeah, sure. But that's the thing as well, is that kids are idiots and they will break things. So naturally, that's going to happen.
And I was actually really pleasantly surprised by some of the other like toy games in there. Like,
right,
there's stuff where you're just like batting a baseball, like it's just a batting cage.
There's just these whole rooms of just random things, just like, and then you can go anti-gravity and let them float around. You can pull them towards you, like giant fishes that I would just pull right into my face, and they were just huge in my face, and
that stuff is really fun, and I think that's where other VR experiences like PSVR, there should be more experiences that are just playing in a physics-based environment. And it's
just like a little sandbox of like throwing a basketball or like throwing a boomerang or whatever.
Yeah, and it's made me want to pick up Job Simulator, for example. I'm like, I should really play. I need more physics-based things that I can play with in PSVR sort of thing.
Totally. So, I think that's the thing that like Jeff Gerstmann talks a lot about when it comes to VR is he was playing through Vader Immortal on that video, and he was trying to punch Darth Vader in the face and try and steal his lightsaber and shit, and there's just zero reaction. And I think the thing that is so crucial with VR is that there is an interactivity to almost everything that you touch, right? Like the world needs to feel like it has a sense of tangibility to it for it to work as a VR experience, because otherwise there's this dissonance that happens that you reach out for something that you think you can pick up, and when you don't, it's jarring, right? And I think that's the part of VR that people need to nail down, is making games that are much smaller in scope but much deeper in terms of detail.
And that's why I actually think something like Beat Saber is one of the smoothest VR experiences, because what it's trying to do, it is very simplistic, but it's not saying you can pick this up, you can pick that up, you can throw this, you can throw that. It's saying you have two lightsabers, you're slashing blocks, you're not doing anything else, and it nails those things. So you never get a disconnect of, oh, that should have gone here or something. Whereas a game like, God, my brain's gone blank. What's the shooting game?
Astrobot? No.
Time-based.
Time jumper.
Shooting.
You mean a VR game?
A VR game that I just played.
Super Hot.
Super Hot, exactly. So with Super Hot, like there were times where it was difficult to pick up the guns and things, and there is a real disconnect at times with that game. Even as good as the highs of its highs are much higher than a game like Beat Saber, in my view, actually, because it's really satisfying when that game gets it right. But back to Labo VR, I do think those toys are cool. I do think that, like, the tracking on the single Joy-Con when you're throwing it about doesn't feel great, but
because it's not really meant for that, right? No. And I think the thing with the basketball game especially was, I was trying to tell my mum how to do this, but it's less that you're throwing, it's more that you're pointing and letting go of the button. There isn't full motion involved in it. It's just kind of point and click almost.
And that's fine, but like when you step back and you think it's like a 30 quid, 35 quid thing, it's very good value. There's a lot in there. There's a lot to play with. Like, it's totally aimed at a younger demographic. I get that, but I still had a really good time building the pinwheel, playing with that gun.
You weren't doing the instructions where it told you to go get an adult for help.
Oh, no? I saw that instruction when I was zooming it forward. Yeah, and also there is a washer on the pinwheel that got the same instruction.
I see. Okay,
which is good, but I'm not sure if I want to pick up like another bird or
the elephant or whatever.
The elephant or something. Maybe I'll pick up one of them at some point.
Were you not like convinced by just building the pinwheel that you'd have fun building it at least? Because for me, actually, a lot of the joy of the Labo VR, to be frank, was the building. It was the creation aspect that I like doing things like that. I like building IKEA furniture. I love Lego,
Yeah,
that's a thing that I like doing.
It was fine. If I'm going to put my brain into that gear, I would kind of rather end up with a nice chest of drawers or something rather than an elephant that I'm going to play with for 15 minutes maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's just being
very
too
fair,
much of an adult.
fair.
But
no,
I don't know. It was a cool experience. it's made me want to go back to PSVR more and try out things. So I have like picked up Moss. I've picked up like Star Wars Battlefront.
As a result of your VR
exactly.
experience, you've decided actually real VR is real VR. And,
I mean, yeah, PSVR is infinitely better, but it's also much more expensive, and I can appreciate it. But yeah, picked up Star Wars Battlefront, picked up Moss. Want to get back into both of those, and yeah, as I think it is aimed at kids, but there is plenty there if you're curious about. I think if you've never played any VR, it's pretty damn cool. It works. It's cool. I've not tried Mario or Zelda yet. I should really try that,
or Smash Brothers
and Smash Brothers. Get the sick bucket ready. So yeah, it's cool. So I've been playing that. I've also been playing the Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm like 5-6 hours in. There's some really wild stuff in that game. There's some really like
some shit that you have no idea what's going on.
There's some like, what is going on? I'm not enjoying this, but early impressions, the Disney parts are pretty awesome, but the overall story is just insanely convoluted, and I'm very disconnected from it, but I want to try and beat that and have a proper discussion about it later, so I'll come back to that game. And then,
hey man, like for someone who likes theme parks, like those special moves where you use theme park rides, I think is like right up your alley.
I was
in a
flying
way
through the sky on Great Thunder Mountain Railroad, in my roller coaster train, shooting at the rock titan from Hercules in the sky, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm loving this. This is so cool. Like, how did they get permission from Disney to do this? Like, merging theme park rides, blasting their characters. It's insane. And yeah, anyway, I'll talk about Kingdom Hearts when I have a more fully formed view on that game.
Will you ever have a fully formed view on that game? It's a real question. I don't know.
I don't know. It leaves me really speechless, to be honest, because there's parts of it I love and parts of it I hate, and it kind of merges them together into this really weird experience that keeps me wanting to find out more. I'm like, where does it go next? What is this? What am I doing here? Why am I? Anyway, it's weird. It's a weird game that I think it's actually one of the hardest games to articulate on the podcast. I'll give it that award for free. So yeah, it's Kingdom Hearts 3. And then I saw you being very hot on a game called Gato Roboto.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I've not played a Metroidvania in a little while. I'll download it and give it a go. It's a pretty short game. I beat the whole thing in 3 hours, 52 minutes. And you play as a cat. It's a Metroidvania, and it's in like black and white.
Yeah, monochromatic, Game Boy-ish look to some degree.
Yeah, and
kind of reminds me of Minute, kind of reminds me of Downwell, just because both those games are very monochromatic.
Exactly.
But I think the pixel art style of this, it does hew more towards a Game Boy kind of chunky look, right? Because you're a cat, but also like you are in a mech, so you're like a mech cat, and the cat is basically the morph ball of this game, where it can jump out and run around, but it's very, very susceptible to being killed. Whereas you're in the mech, and you're kind of like clomping around, very chunky pixels and shooting things and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think the pacing and the way that it merges like exploration with boss fights felt very, very, very Metroid Fusion for me, in the sense that the exploration's almost entirely linear, and there's a real emphasis on difficulty in the boss fights. Like, they are definitely like the most engaging part of the game, the hardest part of the game. I think because you're constantly dying and facing the bosses again and again, you end up spending most of the game fighting bosses, I found, actually. So
I didn't feel that way about it necessarily. I think that a lot of it is patterns and also realizing that you need to use certain abilities. For me, like, I faced one of those bosses, and then later on I was watching a stream of Dodger go through the game, and she, when she was facing against one of them, used the phase ability where you like dash in a completely different way than I had, that made it just way fucking easier, and I was just making it too difficult for myself. There's a phase of one of the bosses where he starts out like in this kind of lava pit, and they're shooting upwards at you, and you have to like shoot down at him with missiles. And then eventually the lava lowers, and you see his full body,
and then you can just phase through him.
Well, one of the moves he does is he puts like a full lava beam to the sky, and then like has his fist facing you, and I was trying to jump over him and dash through the lava beam, whereas what you can do is just dash through the bottom of his legs. which I just didn't even realize was possible.
Yeah,
But yeah, so there's definitely that to it, where I think a lot of my difficulty with some of the bosses was just me being an idiot and not thinking a more efficient way to do things, essentially.
Yeah, but I think the bosses are really well designed. There's some nice phases in there. It is almost a Cuphead level of like precision required at times.
Yeah, like there's definitely like one of those ones which is kind of like a space shooter almost, that you're just having to dodge and really focus on dodging and then getting hits in where you can. One of the later upgrades you get for getting the tapes is an auto, like turbo button essentially. So you don't have to keep tapping the button to fire. You can just hold down the button and it auto fires.
Oh, I never unlocked that.
Yeah, so there's the frog guy, I think, in the main hub area where he says, like, go find these VHS tape things for me. They're really cool. Like, they're basically different skins for the game. So similar to Downwell, Downwell has different skins that you can get that make it look like a Game Boy game, or like red and black color palette as opposed to black and white. It has a ton of those, like some of them which are, Virtual Boy reference. One's a Game Boy reference. Like, one of them is just like pink. So it just changes the entire color palette of the game to something different, and they're neat. For me, they cause difficulty with readability with some of the environments and stuff like that, so I tended to stick with the black and white just because just understanding what you can hit and things like that worked better with the basic one. Did you switch it up at all during the game, Bally?
Yeah, a little bit. I wasn't vanilla the entire time, but I did eventually find one I liked and didn't really move from that. I can't remember which one. I think it was white on black, but in a different white on black, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was like a bit brighter.
Yeah,
almost.
It was just a bit brighter, so I kind of stuck with that. But it was a nice collectible. I did actually get 69% of all the collectibles, which is on the high end for me in terms of like searching for things. So
yeah, that's pretty good. I like those as collectibles. I think that they are generally pretty fun. And the thing that I like this game does is it does show you rooms that you haven't entered, and it's pretty open about what places you need to go back to, right? Like, dead ends and things are closed off, and you know that there's nothing past there, and there are specific areas that you need to go to open up parts of the world and find secrets. So it helped when I was going back through and doing a little bit of exploration. But I think one of the cool things about this game that it shares with a few games have done this type of thing recently is that notion of having a meter as opposed to collecting a bunch of shit, right? And what I mean by that is, traditionally in Metroid, you have missiles and you get missile tanks to expand your missiles, and you have collectible pickups that are just like, oh, I've run out of missiles, I need to get some more missiles. So like I sit here and I grind for a bit to get more missiles. This runs on a more Link Between Worlds style idea where your gun overheats. So the idea is you can shoot a maximum you start with better. So you start by being able to shoot 2 missiles at once without having to wait for it to kind of refresh. Then you can upgrade it to 3, and it's just, for me, it streamlines things, right? It just makes things so much easier, and there's less to think about. There's less micromanagey aspects to it, because I think a lot of the stuff in Link Between Worlds is like in the service of the play being as fluid as possible. So not having to worry about, oh, do I have enough bombs or arrows for this boss I'm about to fight, which is a constant problem in Link to the Past, and one of my greatest problems with that game generally. You have the meter where it's like, okay, it will recharge. I just need to wait a bit and it will recharge, and I have access, right? You never do not have access to what you need. And especially in a Metroid style game where sometimes you'll come across barriers that can only be taken down with a specific item, you want access to that item, and you don't want to have to run around and collect, pickups just to have enough of it. It's a very old game design thing. I think it's very prominent in the old Mega Man games, especially like you think about the stupid boss in Mega Man 2 where the entire room is those stupid laser things, and you have to have enough of, I believe it's Crash Man's thing, to kill them all, and if you don't have enough you have to go through and grind before the boss to get to them. So yeah, for me, that is just a real nice thing. And it's also interesting because the missiles in this game have a kickback to them. So it does facilitate you making sure that you're on even ground when you are firing the missile. And you have to think about what's behind you, because if you're on the edge of a ledge and there's lava below you, you really need to think about like when you're firing out a missile and the opportune moment to do so, because otherwise you'll knock yourself back. So, and it works in the idea that you're this tiny cat in this big suit, and like you're not going to have the weight to withstand like the kickback of a missile.
But the kickback also means that when you fire down, you get a little bit of almost levitation when you're
right,
trying to jump over a big gap. And it's it's just like a really interesting thing that I've not seen that often in like Metroidvania platformers or anything like it. It's a nice twist to that formula, and I think that, like you said before, the missiles and the recharging aspect of them is infinitely better than like collecting. And I mean, it kind of, the entire missile expansion isn't a thing in this game. You get a missile, the missile upgrade improves the rate of missile fire, but there's never that. There's not like a huge number of missile expansions like there is in a Metroid game.
And to some degree that reduces the amount of secrets there are, right? Because Metroid is just chock full of rooms with shit hidden in them. But I'm fine with that, right? Because a lot of the upgrades are health, and they are, the skins, the palette swap stuff. So that's enough for me, and the scope of this game really doesn't facilitate hiding a ton of stuff, because it is short enough that you don't need to go that length to like really upgrade and have a bunch of stuff, because it's kind of built in a way where it's unnecessary to do so. It's I think a lot of the character design is great as well. I like the cat. I think the cat is very cute, and a lot of the things with the cat in particular are unique to it, right? There are certain areas that you just cannot simply access as the big mech because you're too large, you can't jump high enough, and the cat has the ability to just climb up any flat surface. So really high walls that you need to get over, jump out as the cat, go through it, but you need to be careful. Like it does feel like Zero Mission, the end of Zero Mission, right? Where you're out of the suit and you are very vulnerable, you will die pretty much instantly.
So it's almost stealthy, but you're not trying to be, you're avoiding enemies, but you're not defeating them.
You're not hiding.
You're not hiding. Yeah.
You're not hiding. You're just basically running from things and trying not to get hit. There's early on, there's a kind of underwater area where there's an octopus that looks very cute. Like I just think a lot of the design is cute, and obviously like you transfer into
when you drain the water and the octopus is like cute.
They're just flapping about. They're just like falling to the ground. You switch into a submarine, which is just a neat thing. Like lots of neat ideas, lots of little things that this game does really well. Some good sound design, just very chill. Just looks really nice. I think it's just one of those. I saw a tweet from Brian Altano and I was like, okay, on my radar, Metroid game, short on the eShop. Under £6. I had extra money with gold points, so I got it for like £5. Just a perfect. I want to play something quickly and finish it. I think you got it and beat it in one day on the weekend as well.
It's great.
It's just a great injection of like, hey, I'm someone who just takes any Metroidvania there is into my consciousness, and I'm like, I'll get to that at some point. And it was just one of those that was like, well, I'm just going to jump on it now and play it. Because
and I do think it is a very good one. Like I think it is. It does.
It's really solid
stuff well. And for such a small game, that's pretty impressive.
Definitely. So it's called Gato Roboto. I will say, I don't think the name is very good. I don't think it's particularly memorable or really sells what the game is. They couldn't have taken the name Catroid. They can't have used Meowtroid because heavily copyrighted, but both of those games really describe what this is in, I guess, a more pithy way to some degree.
You could have got away with Meowtroid.
No, you couldn't have. Nintendo would fucking send their lawyers on your ass. You would be done.
I don't know. They'd have to justify that reduces the number of sales of Metroid. And I don't know. They'd struggle. Anyway.
Bally, Nintendo is a litigious company, and they would not take kindly to a game called Meowtroid.
I'm not saying they wouldn't take kindly, but they would have to prove that it is holding up their sales on their existing copyright, and it's hard to see how like a little indie game, but we'll see.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes the law doesn't apply to companies like Nintendo. So they wouldn't have to prove that. Well, no, I agree with you, but hey, welcome to our fucking world where corporations rule everything. Anyway, enough about late capitalism. Let's talk about a game where we go super late capitalism, where the entirety of the world's fish population has been destroyed, and sushi is a rare commodity, and the great sushi wars have happened, and people are dying on every front.
The UK, where sushi is hard to find.
Pretty much. So I just finished Sushi Striker, Way of the Sushido, which was a Switch and 3DS game. It was originally revealed as a 3DS game. Bill Trinan, I remember, a couple of E3s ago, teasing on Twitter. He's like, hey, there's a cool announcement coming. I don't think anyone will expect it. And obviously people hyped themselves up into a frenzy thinking it was something insane. But no, it was just this cute little game from Nintendo. I think it was made by Indie Zero, which is the company that made... Maybe they did something with the Mother series, I want to say. I can't remember. But anyway, they put this game out, and it is... I struggle to really define it, right? Because I say puzzle game, but it's more of an action puzzle game in the sense that the whole notion of it, I think we talked about the demo before when it came on the eShop, is that you have lanes of sushi, like a sushi go-round, and they come from left to right, right to left, and there are 3 lanes. And you have different coloured plates. This is literally what Sushi Go Round is, right? Different coloured plates have different costs, etc. And you have to link up plates. And so the idea is the game should be played with a touchscreen on the 3DS, like with your stylus and stuff. Switch, it's harder because, you know, using a finger is a bit more difficult. It's larger. It's harder to see everything on the screen. And I started playing on the touchscreen, and then I kind of relented. I was getting like B grades and C grades with using my finger, and then as soon as I switched to using the analog stick, I was like S grade, S grade, S grade. Like I was just crushing it basically with the analog stick, which to me said like it's just a lot easier to play this game that way. It kind of works. So you're linking similarly colored plates together, and you have a time window of about 7 seconds. And if you go over that 7 seconds, the plates will just disappear and you won't get them. But the notion is that you collect up these plates, and then you have a big stack of them, and the idea is that both you and your opponent have health bars, and you have to just shoot them at your opponent. So you basically eat all the sushi, stack up the plates, and then just fucking throw them in the face of your opponent. The empty plates are your ammunition, and obviously the more plates that you get in one stack, the stronger that stack will be. If you fire them manually, like do them all at once, it will tend to have a multiplier on it. So you want to save up a bunch of really high stacked plates and then go boom, 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 and just fire them all quick fire at your opponent. And that will tend to like end matches quite quickly and get you in some good places. But fundamentally, the game is that and stays like that for the majority of it. And it really doesn't change that much. Like, there are slight mechanical things that they introduce that make it a little bit trickier. There's lots of skills in the game, right? So, like, some of the skills you get early on are from... It's interesting, right? Because it's this weird fusion of Pokemon with this puzzle game, because you have sushi sprites, and the sushi sprites are the creatures that came around when the fish had all died and stuff, and they are the ones that create sushi. Like, that's where sushi comes from. And so you have these sushi sprites, and they all have different abilities, and they evolve and stuff as well. So like when you hit level 30, it'll evolve from its second stage to its third stage, whatever, and it'll turn into a different looking creature. It's a very Japanese thing generally, you know, like, you know, Digimon was the thing. Was Digimon Japanese? It must have been.
Of course it was. By the way, Indie Zero worked on stuff like NES Remix,
right,
Electroplankton,
right,
Cooking Guide on the DS. They co-develop,
They've worked on a lot of weird shit for Nintendo, and this is no different. But yeah, like, you know, Yokai Watch, like a lot of these Japanese games where, you know, you have creatures that evolve into other creatures and stuff like that. Yeah, so each of these sushi sprites have their own abilities. One of them, Jinrai, who's like the main character, his ability is to turn every plate on the screen the same color, so that you can just like collect them all really quickly in a row, and it basically gives you a free 20 plate stack, which is pretty powerful. Like 20 plates is pretty solid, and usually near the end game you're trying to shoot for 20 plate stacks pretty much every time you go for a stack. And then you have one which like turns everything into, desserts, which will heal you. So each of these sushi sprites have their own abilities. I will say that the first few that I got, I kind of just stuck with for the whole of the game, just because they had very helpful abilities that I tended to use in every match, and were useful. So I kind of just did that and stuck with them. So despite the fact that you do collect a bunch of them, it is... it's an RPG in a sense because you level them up. So some of them will just stay like level 10 or whatever. And by the end of the game, you need to be super high level. So you kind of need to pick who you want to go with and just stick with them, unless you want to do unnecessary grinding and things like that. So those skills play into things. And sometimes the enemies will have skills of their own which you won't have access to that kind of mess you up. One of them being that it turns all the plates the same color. So you have no idea which ones to link. And a lot of these abilities are time-based, so they'll only last for like 5 or 6 seconds, but they can really throw you off if you're in a good rhythm and kind of mess you about. Another one, it just like, puts up barriers so you can't see what color the plates are when you're trying to collect them. There's one which will put a bunch of wasabi onto your plates, and so if you eat wasabi, you will be timed out for a period of time because it's too hot and you're just like my mouth. So if you stack a really long trail but there's wasabi in it, at the end of that trail you'll kind of be timed out for a period of time. So as I say, lots of little twists on it, but fundamentally the game stays the same throughout, so it doesn't really facilitate you just binging and playing through. And I got this game in February and I've been chipping away at it since February. Like, I don't play it a huge amount at a time, and maybe like yesterday was the most I played it in one sitting because I was like, I knew I was near the end. I was like, I'm just gonna finish the game, but really it's like you pick it up for a couple of games and you're like, I'm satisfied. It is, for me, it is such a satisfying mechanic, just the sound design on the way the plates link together. It's just like it just really, and when you're on a roll, when you are getting like 25-30 plates in one, it feels so good. And like the train will speed up, like the conveyor belt will just go into overdrive and you'll be trying frantically to make it so that you can find this weaving way through. Feels fantastic, just such at its core base mechanics. I really love it, and I think it's a super satisfying game to play. And the thing that really is interesting is how much budget it feels was put into the game, because it's not just going from level to level. There's a lot of cutscenes and voice acting in this game. It does one of those weird things when the dialogue happens where it says the first line and then doesn't voice the second line of dialogue, and it happens constantly. And I don't know, like, it's one of those, I guess, budgetary constraints. Like I say, it feels like it's got a big budget, but when I say that, I feel like for a game like this, which is a weird puzzle game about eating sushi that not many people are going to play, is going to be a pretty low-key affair for Nintendo sales-wise. It feels like they put a lot more into this than they maybe should have. I don't know. I'm kind of glad they did, because there's a really good stuff in there. Some of the cutscenes are just so ridiculous. Some of the characters,
maybe it did really well in Japan.
No, well, it came out at the same time everywhere. I believe anyway. I don't think it came out first in Japan. Maybe it has
done well in Japan.
Well, maybe it has. I imagine it will have done better in Japan generally. It is 100% a Japanese game, top to bottom. But it is very... It just feels like there was a lot of love and care put into it. And the writing is... It's weird. It's funny. Like... There are just strange characters. I posted a video to Twitter, 5-second clip. There are so many times I've just screenshotted or just taken a video clip of this game because just ridiculous things are said by the characters. Because this world is all about sushi and wars of sushi, they're just weird things that people talk about. So ultimately, would I recommend Sushi Striker? I mean, if you can find it for 10 quid like I did, then yeah, because it was back in February that I was on base.com, which is a website in the UK that tends to like do some good like price reductions on games, and there was Ni no Kuni 2 for about 11 quid and this for like 9.95. I was like, well, I'm going to play both of these games at some point, and it seems ridiculous to pass up an offer for basically 10 quid for both of these, so I did it, and I got them both for 20 quid essentially, and yeah, I would definitely say if you can find it cheap, just pick it up, because it is really unlike anything else I've ever played, and it's so unique and weird, and I really enjoyed it. It's again, it's not a game that you're going to binge over a weekend, but it is a constant thing on the Switch that I just kept picking up and eating away at, as you do with sushi, and just really liked it, And as someone who likes sushi, just the concept of it, it made me excited. So yeah, Sushi Striker, Where the Sushido. You can get it on 3DS as well if you don't have Switch. So check it out. It's neat. Okay, that's going to close us, but we will come back after the break when we will be going through our predictions for E3 2019 and what Nintendo will potentially do. See you in a sec.
Sushi Striker たちのファイトマインが火花パチパチぶつかりそう始まり取りまくって食べまくって Don't stop wake up my way 崩れていく上がっていく赤魚浜やらワン踊ろうダンスダンスダンスダンス寿司でトライジャンスジャンスジャンスジャンス掴んでいくバンスバンスバンスバンス弾んでいく
Alright everyone, welcome back to the second part of today's show. It is time to chat about Electronic Triple for 2019 and what Nintendo are going to potentially do. It's a big year for Nintendo, Bally. It's
they're the big hitters this year.
Yeah, it feels like it. I mean,
they've got the most to show off.
Well,
debatably.
Microsoft definitely has a big show planned. I think they've said it's going to be 2 hours. It's going to be a lot of stuff. Microsoft, obviously, they've acquired a lot of studios. They've bought a lot of studios. I expect to see a lot of games there. I expect Microsoft to show up their next generation console, stuff like that, which is exciting in its own way. But
we'll get an actual console reveal. That's a big
I believe
deal.
So. Yeah, I believe so. So that's exciting in its own way. But I do think in terms of a first-party lineup, Nintendo are just fucking on fire for this year.
After
we were talking about
a quieter year last year, I'd say.
Definitely.
Smash Brothers was the big thing last year.
Right.
That took up a lot of the Direct. There were very small announcements in comparison in that Direct last year. With,
if you were not a Smash Brothers fan, that was a pretty bad E3, I will say.
Yeah. And then this year, Sony have just completely vacated. They're not even doing any sort of stream, are they? They just put out that 8-minute Death Stranding reveal trailer thing.
Hey man, Bally, if you're confused by Kingdom Hearts, just wait for motherfucking Death Stranding.
I share some of the concerns that Abby had on Beastcast about that game. I need a bit of a more. I don't want to be taken for a ride and then spat out the other end, not knowing
Bally.
what that was all about. I want a bit of resolution, That's what I'm all about.
No, that's all I want. All I want is to be digested by Norman Reedus and spat out as a baby. That's all I want in my life. Okay, that's what Death Stranding shall and will be.
I want to play it though. Day one.
Oh, for sure. Want
to try it. Anyway.
So Nintendo. If we're talking about it, but if we're talking about the rest of this year in terms of months left. We have a solid hitter in every month, essentially, going by the fact that all the games that have been announced for this year do come out this year, which means we've got Mario Maker in June, Fire Emblem July, Astral Chain in August, and then September, potentially
Animal Crossing, potentially Luigi.
Yeah, potentially Link's Awakening, right? So we've got those three. We've got September could be Animal Crossing, October Luigi, November Pokemon just got announced for. Where does Link's Awakening go? Does Link's Awakening happen in December? So many games, right? So we have, with those games announced so far, we have enough games for one per month till the end of the year. And the question is, where do those games fall? When do they get released? Do they all come out this year?
The question is, how do we play them all?
Yeah, the question is, where's my wallet? Please help me, dear God. So yeah, it looks like a strong year, but I think on the E3 front for Nintendo, it's interesting because it feels like a lot of the quantities are known quantities. It's not like they're going to announce Link's Awakening for the first time, because they did that already earlier this year. That game will probably come out this year, but we've already seen it. Like, it's not a surprise that it exists. Sure, it'll be good to see a bit more of it, but I don't know to what degree it's going to be a different game and things like that. Animal Crossing, we know it exists, so it's exciting to see what it looks like, but the excitement of the announcement that it exists is kind of been taken away from us. And then, of course, Luigi's Mansion, which we all also know exists, and we have seen some of it. A lot of the stuff I feel in Nintendo's presentation this year is going to be focused on fleshing out the known quantities, right? Talking about things we already know, and then having a couple of surprises in there.
There's got to be a couple of surprises.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even last year, they had Mario Party, which wasn't a big deal, but it was something we didn't know about beforehand, which was a first-party release that they put out. Which, fine. Like, I ideally hope that there is something better than fucking Mario Party this year. But it's Nintendo, and we really can't tell a lot of the time. So it is just grasping at straws and kind of guessing and you know, and whatever. Do you have any hopes, anything this year for Nintendo's presentation? Do you think it's going to be a good one, Bally?
I think it's going to be strong, and I think it does all come down to what are those details going to be on the games you already know about, and what is that surprise? What's the unexpected? What's like the extra stuff on the Saturday going to be like? I hope it's always a good atmosphere, because obviously Nintendo haven't been at E3 in terms of a on-stage presentation for a long time, so it is always nice to see that environment of all the Nintendo fans, and they're having their Smash Bros, they're having their Splatoon, they're having this year's like Mario Maker as well, right? So I think it's just it's a fun, like, carnival like atmosphere, which I think is nice.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a good time to watch, and I think that, you know, they have things beforehand. They have the Saturday where they're doing their tournament, so we've got Splatoon and Mario Maker and Smash Brothers, of course, so there's potential for like Smash Brothers characters to be announced and things like that. You know, people are talking about, will Nintendo show up on Microsoft's stage? Is this the year? You know, Sony's not here. Is it time for Nintendo and Microsoft to just finally get in bed together? They already have shown, with Cuphead releasing earlier on Switch this year, that I think, you know, we're probably going to get the announcement of Ori and the Blind Forest on Switch. I think that's inevitable. Will that be shown at Microsoft's press conference, or will Nintendo have it in the Direct? And will there be something more? Will there be something deeper? That could be exciting. I think
a really big thing that is non-Nintendo is like Google Stadia, and the fact that they're doing their show pre-E3, like it's happening tomorrow as we speak. Like, we're recording on the 5th, like it's happening on the 6th, and they're kind of getting out ahead of the E3 train.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of potential for excitement happening around E3. No shit, of course there is. Will it pay off? Who knows? It's always kind of a flip of the coin every year, but it's a weird year, right? Like, no Sony. It's strange.
No, Sony is huge. That is really big, but
it looks like Square Enix are going to try and fill their boots as large as they can, right? Like, Square Enix have Final Fantasy. They've got the Avengers project that everyone's excited to hear about, by Crystal Dynamics.
Kingdom Hearts 4.
Kingdom Hearts, whatever the fuck next.
Huge.
I imagine that they will give Yoko Taro all the money he wants to make a Nier sequel. The sequel to Nier Automata is pretty inevitable, I feel. Fucking give Yoko Taro the money and let him make the next Final Fantasy, for God's sake.
We should play that game.
I really want to play Nier Automata. It's I've been trying to get around to it for ages and ages. I will play it eventually. So lots of things. But we are going to kick things off here with our predictions for Nintendo for 2019. And Bally, you said that last year, and I always forget what we do, how many predictions we do, what are silly, what are real. You said last time we did 3 predictions, 3 legit ones and 1 silly one.
3 deadly serious ones that are going to happen, and one less likely serious one that is not going to happen.
Sure. I feel like all of mine are deadly stupid in a way. So yeah. Anyway, let's kick it off, I guess, by talking about some predictions. Bally, give me your first prediction for what Nintendo will do at E3 2019.
I'm going to go straight in there with what I think they're going to try and line up for 2020. Okay. I should say spring 2020.
Despite the fact that Nintendo always say, we're not talking about anything past this year. They always say.
They break their rule, so I'm not believing them anymore.
My favourite example, very favourite example of this is when Takahashi stood there and said to our faces, "Look, guys, we're focusing on this year, all right? Just don't worry about anything. This is this year we're focusing on for this Direct." Literally, as soon as he disappears off the screen, they fade in the logo for Metroid Prime 4.
Yep.
So, Nintendo will lie to your face directly.
If black is white, then white is black. And
and then instantly contradict themselves. So, anything's up for debate here.
So, yeah, I think that a couple of big hitters that we've not really seen technically on Switch yet. That's a new Mario Kart. I think it's probably time for a new Mario Kart. I think we're gonna see a trailer and some gameplay, but it's not going to be on the show floor. I think this is going to be on top of this announcement. I think they will also have Pikmin 4 finally coming around. And both these games, I should say, are going to come out in spring and summer 2020. Mm-hmm. That's normally the multiplayer online
period.
Slot,
yeah, Splatoon was there.
Splatoon's been there. Mario Kart 8 was there.
Yeah.
I guess Deluxe was there as well because it came out with the Switch.
Technically, it was April, I think, so not really.
And I think Pikmin 3 also came out in spring, I want to say.
It was like late summer. It was like July or August or something. It got delayed. That was the problem with Wii U, is it kept getting fucking delayed. So
I do think Mario Kart keeps the Mario Kart brand, but as we've said before, I think they do smashify. I think they're going to bring in a lot more characters. I think you might see flying, you might see boats, you might see a lot more Star Fox, Metroid, like a huge changes to what that formula is going to be like. And that's a series that I think has earned a good turning on its head. And, it's difficult because they don't want to rock the boat too much because that is such a strong selling game, but I think the second they keep that brand and they keep the Nintendo characters and it's still aimed at a family audience, I think it's still going to do incredibly well. So I think that's what I'd say from Mario Kart. Pikmin 4, it could be anything, couldn't it? I do think that
I mean, it's done. It's been done for 6 years, so you know.
Supposedly, but I do think Pikmin 3 improved so much on aspects of 1 and 2 that
Pikmin 3 is a fucking fantastic
game. It's not a perfect game, but it's a near perfect game, and it's hard to improve on that formula. So I think just making the worlds a bit bigger, but at the same time not to the degree where you're sprinting miles and miles back to your ship, which I think is an art form that Pikmin has nailed quite well so far, is that they make the world feel like exploration based and interesting, but at the same time not so large that you feel overwhelmed by it all. So I think that balance is hard to get right.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. That's one of the things I really loved about Pikmin 3 was it feels like the areas are so achievable. Like then they feel big, but the spaces themselves are actually kind of cozy and like they feel small enough to where you can master those spaces. Like it's a really good balance in terms of the size of those places for sure. I would love to see Pikmin go in a direction that is completely different. Like obviously Pikmin has tended towards garden environments, like very foresty places where there's like big bugs that they can do stuff with. I'd love to see them throw it into a completely different place, like have a more urban environment, have it based in a city as opposed to like a forest or something. I think they could do some really weird things with that, and stealth when there are humans walking on the street and things like that. I don't think there is room with the Pikmin series to change up the space, give it a new lick of paint, and kind of change some of the gameplay dynamics around those ideas. Yeah.
And the Wiimote nunchuck with the gamepad on your lap was, as weird as it sounded, it was kind of the perfect
to some degree, like having a gamepad on your lap is not perfect. I wouldn't call it. I would say that like that was
it was cool, like using your finger to just like point to where your three. I was going to say units, and they are units, but people go and the points you can link up on the map, and some really efficient ways of managing that time that I think Pikmin 3 nailed. So making sure that they don't lose that too much with the way that however it's controlled on Switch. But what do you think? Pikmin 4 and Mario Kart next year?
Pikmin 4, I think, it's going to happen. Like, it's going to happen eventually. I do think that we're in a place where we're looking to reboot Pikmin, right? Like, Pikmin, the fans love it. Like, people are a fan of it. 3 is a nice number to round it out on. I feel like we go the the route of rebooting it and just calling it Pikmin, and just and trying to do something different with it, right? Just have it, as I said, set somewhere a bit more unique. And they do have different biomes in Pikmin, right? Like there's kind of sandy environments. There's that whole boss which is under the sand that you have to like get it to rise up out of and stuff like that. But it tends to be that singular, very verdant space where it's all about plant life and greenery and bugs, and
it's based on Miyamoto's garden.
It is. It's all about gardens, and I like that idea. Garden, but I do think but I do think that there's room for them to try moving it somewhere else and seeing what they can do with that. Like just have it. A bit.
What if you had them just on like an F-Zero track and you had to dodge the
the Pikmin have their adventures through the world of Nintendo? Yeah.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. And it's like all the world of Nintendo just on a really small scale.
Right. Like they're just wandering around and all of a sudden Link just pops up, from Breath of the Wild, gliding over them. Like they see this huge shadow above and it's just Link and his glider just going over as they explore the world. Man, can you imagine like Pikmin set in the world of Breath of the Wild and re-exploring that environment as tiny Pikmin? It would be the largest game world in existence.
It's already the largest game world. You don't need to make it 30 million times bigger.
God, that'd be great. I like that idea.
Anyway.
Mario Kart, I strongly disagree with you on. Like, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, but I think we're in a place now where Nintendo just don't give a fuck, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe makes more money than God, and why would they put R&D resources into making a new Mario Kart? When, one, it dilutes the message having another Mario Kart game out there. Like, it's easier if you can be like, hey, have you got Mario Kart on Switch? And if people start asking, oh, which Mario Kart? It starts to lose its momentum, right? For me, it just worked out for them that they had this game ready to go, and it was, and it's gonna sell a fucking billion copies regardless. I do think that they're just gonna sit this generation out with Mario Kart at this point, and I think that if we do get a different kart racer, it will be that kind of Star Fox thing that we heard rumors about before, or something else like it. I mean, to some degree, the space is being filled by other companies. Sega's putting out Team Sonic Racing. We've got Crash coming back, the remake of Crash Racing
this month.
Yeah, which I will probably pick up at some point as like a new kart experience that I can have on Switch. For sure, I think that's more appealing to me personally than getting Mario Kart 8 again, a game I already own.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah. What's your first prediction?
Great. Well, Bally, it's a prediction from me about E3, which means the first thing on the docket that we've got to tick off. A new 2D Metroid will be announced. But it will once again not be a new Metroid game. As you recall, the end of Samus Returns, Mercury Steam did a very not subtle tease for Metroid Fusion by having one of the ex-parasites take control of one of those stupid monster guys and basically indicated, like, here's what we would do next if Nintendo let us. And I think that Nintendo have let them. I think, Samus Returns did well enough, and they found it was good working with Mercury Steam, and they're gonna go ahead with it. It's gonna be a Metroid Fusion remake, and they will reveal it. It will be on Switch, obviously. It will look a lot better than Samus Returns, but it will still maintain the 2.5D look. I will be annoyed about it again and say, this is bad. Why do you not use pixel art or use some distinctive art style instead of some generic 2.5D thing? Which will not matter when I play it, because I'll enjoy playing it because it's fucking Metroid Fusion. And I predict that in the trailer, Nightmare will reveal himself. We'll get a Nightmare tease. I feel like they will try and add some content. I feel like one of the things they will tout is that they're going to have a new sector. So, Metroid Fusion is built on a space station. There are 6 sectors in the game. I feel like they're going to be like, oh, the bonus content this time, like they did with Zero Mission, having that extra thing, is there's a secret Sector 7, and that's going to add something to the lore, and it's going to build on the eventual next game in the series that will finally break the timeline curse of Metroid, and we'll have a game that comes after Fusion.
Yeah.
So yeah,
definitely seems possible. And it's like this weird thing of we're just going to put out a Metroid game while you wait for another Metroid game.
Yeah,
Prime 4,
they already did that with Samus Returns. They're like, here's a Metroid game you can do while you wait for this big one, and then they rebooted Prime 4 on this. So like again, they're like,
will it be announced in the Treehouse or in the Direct?
Ooh, tricky, because they did pull a fast one before and they announced it. I think it will. I think this is direct worthy. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of new announcements, to be fair, but I think this one, it is a Metroid game. I think that the conversation around Metroid has been spun more positive as a result of the Prime announcement and Samus Returns being pretty decent as a game. I think that, they feel safe announcing another 2D Metroid again, and I think that, it's not what I want. I want a new 2D Metroid, but Metroid Fusion is one of my favorite games of all time. Like, I'm not going to say no to a remake of one of my favorite games.
Solid.
I'm excited for more Metroid.
Right. Shall I go for my next prediction?
Yes.
Okay, so Animal Crossing.
I
think they're going to go heavy on the online, and I think you're going to be given the ability to speak to strangers online, but not your friends.
That's so fucking true. This is the most Nintendo thing.
I mean, that was a joke. But
are you sure? Are you sure, Bally? In a world where we can't play fucking Mario Maker with our friends, are you sure?
I pray it's a joke. I do think they're going to go heavy on the online multiplayer, and I shouldn't really call it multiplayer. I think they're going to go heavy in terms of like MMO style. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more public spaces that you can visit outside your town.
Okay,
I think there's going to be a big emphasis on a world you can visit where there's going to be a marketplace and trade. There's going to be auctions taking place. You can set up your own store.
So like the idea of let's go to the city, but instead of the city being just an extension of the shops,
let's go to the city kind of thing.
Have it like a large social space essentially.
Right, but here there's also going to be like a forest where you can enter bug catching contests, and like a coast and rivers where you can enter live fishing contests, and these are all outside your town. So and that in terms of communicating with everyone, I think there will be like stock phrases, and I don't think you're going to have full-on voice chat with anyone.
No.
But I think that Animal Crossing is almost such a simplistic game, and in the way that you could almost get by with stock phrases to a degree, where you turn up at this auction, you say, I'm going to bid this much, I'm going to bid that, I'm offering this, I'm buying.
That's a fun idea. People just standing at an auction.
Yeah, so just and it'll be the perfect place to go. You're like, I just need that one more thing for this set or something. And you're just right, I'll just track down, and there'll be search functions where you can go to this part of the market, that part of the market.
Do you think you'll be able to just set up your own stall and just sell your wares?
Yes.
That's a
just
great
like Harvest Moon.
You're getting me excited about this Animal Crossing thing that's probably not going to be in the game, but sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, so it does detract a lot from your town, which I guess is a huge focus on Animal Crossing. But
sure.
I think in order
not necessarily, right? Because like you're going out there to acquire things to improve your town.
Sure. Absolutely. You know? So I think it's just that's the next step that Animal Crossing needs. Unless you go the we've talked about it before, like the Stardew Valley route of more detail, more stuff you can do in your town.
Well,
I'm skeptical whether they'd go for that, and that they'd probably favor something where you are like bidding for stuff in an auction or setting up a stall in a town, and people can come along and because it's all live, like it is all in real time, like it's bids during the day, and there could be like a nighttime auction, a daytime, a morning, and all these slots that you can go and make. And then you could even have like a bar that is situated in the town that KK will visit maybe on a different night than the Saturday night in your own town, or something fun like that. I don't know.
Yeah, there could be social events that happen within that social space, right?
Yeah, and that's something that Nintendo have gone for with like Splatoon, that I can really see them trying to emphasize with Animal Crossing more.
Right, Splatoon's not really a good example because they're not actually social, people. They're just avatars of people with Miiverse-style messages above their heads. Yeah. They're not really there in the space, right? Like they try and make it feel like it's a social space, but it actually isn't.
Yeah.
I think it would be great if you could all attend New Year together, right? Like everyone has a New Year party in that social space, as opposed to you just with your NPC villagers in your town. that makes sense. And maybe I think I should probably go with my Animal Crossing prediction here because you're kind of overlapping a little bit. But my Animal Crossing prediction. Animal Crossing will be fully revealed. It will be called Animal Crossing Country Bumpkin. It will lean more into the Harvest Moon / Stardew Valley elements and will add things like farming, hunting, truck driving, and more. The game will also have the option to run on a real-time weather system if you want. So instead of the in-game one, you can choose whether you want to work on a real-time weather system based on your GPS location. Tom Nook will own a large corporation like Jojamar, and you will have to take him down. So yeah, I do think that Animal Crossing, I actually like your idea a lot more than mine, but I do think that in order to have Animal Crossing be a bit more interesting to veterans of the series, you have to change up some of
step it up in some
of the tasks, some of the mini-game style things, some of the day-to-day elements, the grind of Animal Crossing, as you call it, make it a bit more involved. Like, the thing that Stardew Valley really hits home for me is just how much more fleshed out and how much more you can do and accomplish and the variety that is available in that game versus an Animal Crossing, which feels a lot more surface level in comparison, when you look at it from that perspective. Animal Crossing, obviously, far more detailed in terms of the customization of your house and like fashion aspects and things like that. Stardew Valley very much leans more into the money-making aspect of like building up a business almost. Animal Crossing doesn't quite go down that route. It's more about
the levels of economy are quite basic in
yes, yeah, definitely, yeah. There's not a lot of processing going on. You catch a fish, you sell it. You don't farm and make beer out of a thing you've already made and then refine it and then stuff like that.
Yeah. But I'm fascinated where they'll go with Animal Crossing in this direct, because I do think they will spend quite a chunk of time on it.
Definitely, yeah.
It's a big seller. It's hopefully coming out end of the summer, and
yes,
yeah, I'm excited. I missed New Leaf, as listeners will know, and I'm ready for this bandwagon.
Definitely, Despite the fact that I've played every Animal Crossing aside from the GameCube one, I'm pretty in this time. It's been a while, been long enough. So 2013, man, that's when New Leaf came out, and yeah,
when did City Folk come out? 2008?
09, I think. 09.
Yeah, it was.
So it's a good decade for you, man. So that's a long time.
Decade of no Animal Crossing. I'm ready.
You're ready to.
Do you think that grandma on YouTube who's played every single day since New Leaf came out is gonna? I think
the internet will buy her a Switch at Animal Crossing. I imagine that will happen. Great.
Great.
All right, Bally, your third prediction.
Right, my third prediction. Another out there exciting thing that's probably going to happen in a very long time. But I think it's going to be teased this time. And that's the next 3D Zelda.
Okay.
I think we're at a point where it's time to tease the next 3D Zelda, and I've become so used to the delays and the pain in waiting for 3D Zelda that I think this isn't going to come until at the earliest near the start of 2021. And at the latest, the end of 2024 or something. So.
That seems way too far away, but
no, I know.
Well, it depends what they do with it, right? If they do Breath of the Wild 2 ostensibly, then it could be a 2021 game.
Sure,
if it's a full overhaul like Skyward Sword to Breath of the Wild, then yes, it will be longer.
I don't think it's going to be an overhaul. It's the Breath of the Wild engine, but the key focus here is Link has gone missing. And this is the tease. This is all you know in the trailer. Link's missing. He's not there, and Zelda says something along the lines of, "We must find Link. We have to bring our hero back to Hyrule. We have to do something. We have to do something." And
here's the tie-in, right? Is that he's in Link's Awakening? Like that's where he's gone missing.
Yeah.
He's gone missing in Link's Awakening.
He's in another game. I think that's a great.
He's in another game. He's a Terminator, for God's sake.
But then Zelda looks across like the plains of Breath of the Wild and is like, "We must go now." And then it cuts to Zelda just fighting enemies using she has close combat with magic, and then she also has like a long range Din's Fire, and she's got her light arrows, and she's doing all this fighting, and then it just cuts.
Does she have item durability on her magic spells? Do her books burst into flames?
Oh god! But then it just cuts, and it just goes Zelda. I'm struggling with a name here, but it's Zelda, Link, Link
went missing.
Link's no return, or I don't know, something silly like that. But the key is it's the focus on Zelda. It's the same Zelda from Breath of the Wild. It's that Zelda design.
Okay.
And she could be like cloaked and look more mage-like, perhaps.
Yeah,
I think that'd be cool. I think there's some cool things you can do. But a big selling point is, where's Link? You're playing as Zelda in the Zelda game, and it's coming out in a very long time. Keep hyped.
Do you think it's the same map?
Later.
Do you think that they reuse the overworld and that they maybe update it to reflect the end of Breath of the Wild, where like, you know, society's starting to rebuild itself? Like maybe a lot of those ruins are now populated with new towns and places.
That would be really cool, but I think they would go new map and smaller map, a bit like Ocarina to Majora. Like I think, but obviously the same engine, but more arguably more intricate, more interesting. Still gonna have a good handful of towns, some big open spaces, absolutely. And I'd actually like it if maybe part of the map was the same, a bit like Red Dead 2 with Red Dead 1 in some way. Yeah. I think something like that can link this game to Breath of the Wild in a really real way, without just copying it. I think there's because I really strongly believe they should use that engine again, and I do think that I agree with what you're saying about weapon durability. That's maybe an issue, but I think like Zelda with the magnesis, she could just have that magic, and like there's different things you can do. I think that you can create new powers in the open world and create larger, fewer dungeons, but still have new abilities, but not the same abilities just cut and paste from Breath of the Wild, but some new ones, a bit like Majora's Mask does, for example. But and it's going to come out in a very long time, but we're all going to be like hyped as hell for it, and it's a huge emphasis on Zelda being the main protagonist, which hasn't happened yet, and I think a lot of people would love to see happen. Give it a go. Mix up the formula.
I would love that, man. You're getting me excited about video games that clearly do not exist and will never
I
exist.
know.
That's the problem with this game, is that we lay our hearts out on the line, and they are inevitably going to be crushed. I do feel like the next Zelda, like Aonuma has made comments to the idea that, hey, this is the blueprint, this is the new blueprint going forward. We'll do this for as long as it takes people to get sick of it, and then, you know, that's what they did with the old Zelda formula. And around the time of Skyward Sword is when people were like, Nintendo, do something different, and so they did, and they made Breath of the Wild.
I don't know. 3 more games left in that formula, more or less. I'm convinced. So.
For sure. And then they can just go back to the old way and people will be happy again. I mean, they kind of are doing that already. Link's Awakening is a traditional Zelda experience. So.
No, absolutely. And I do think this game will not go back to the old way, but have old way elements in the size of some of the dungeons, and there'll be more of it. There's not going to be... I think the shrines can be a unique part of Breath of the Wild.
Potentially.
And that you're not going to get a ton of small dungeons in the same way as shrines with this game.
But. I guess. I don't know. If it is to stick with an open world formula, the shrines were just such a great incentive for exploration. That's the thing that gets me, is like, yes, I like the other elements of exploration, but I think the shrines were unique in that they were not only a thing that was fun to find, but a lot of the times they were rewards in terms of like their puzzles, which
were rewards on so many different levels. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Layers of rewards, essentially.
Yeah.
So
I'm convinced Nintendo can come up with something shrine-like that is different to a shrine, that they can emphasize exploration in an open world, but still mix it up.
Hey, if anyone's going to do it, you know.
Not that I can come up with it right now, but
no, of course not.
Sure
of course not. That's why we don't work at Nintendo, and why we just, are pundits who just chat shit about them.
Yes. Anyway,
great, exciting.
EdBZ, what is your third prediction?
Well, like, in the vein of Breath of the Wild, we're going to get a tease for a video game, and people are going to lose their minds because they're going to be like, oh shit, it's a new Zelda, Breath of the Wild. But it will actually be the new Monolith Soft game. And because Monolith worked on Breath of the Wild engine, they're going to fool people. People are going to get tricked to thinking it's a Zelda game. But obviously their new game is, not Zelda-like, but from what the artwork that we've seen, it is a very fantasy medieval setting. And, it is going to show that game off. It's going to be action-based combat. Everyone's going to compare it to Dark Souls, and I'm going to get very annoyed by that. It will be announced as an early 2020 game, but will ultimately come out in fall of 2020. But I think it's time. I think Monolith Soft are maybe the fastest working team at Nintendo. In many ways, probably the hardest working team at Nintendo in terms of all the shit they do in terms of engine work and helping other teams. And, so much they offer to the company.
I'm concerned for the people who work at Monolith Soft.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, they are expanding. They're constantly hiring new people and stuff like that. And like the brief stuff we've seen, like in terms of that artwork, I don't know if it's gonna be that. Like, concept art is concept art. It could just be nothing. It could turn out to be not what they're working on. It could be something completely different, a totally new project. But I do think it is time that we are exposed to whatever the hell their new project is, and it is going to be something akin to Breath of the Wild, but it's going to do its own thing. It's going to be more combat focused, more story focused, less exploration. Like, obviously Monolith,
is it a JRPG though?
It's an RPG, but it's not traditional combat in the way that they have done combat in the past, right? Like their MMO style of combat is unique, but I think that it's going to be more action based, right? It will be more of a
Final Fantasy Kingdom Hearts combat.
I'm thinking more along the lines of a Witcher or Dark Souls, like more Western style action combat.
I'd like that.
Which, I think it's going to be something new for them, and it may feel like, I don't know if they can work in this arena because they've not had a bash at that type of thing, in a while. Like, the last action game they made was Disaster Day of Crisis, and I think the less said about that, the better, depending on who you talk to. But I do feel like it is finally time, and I want to see that, man. I want to see what these guys make, because they are one of my favorite developers in the industry, and they're just always doing things that I enjoy. So it's going to be something new and different. And I do think that they have multiple teams. So I do think that they're simultaneously working on another Xenoblade game, whatever that may be. If it's a sequel to X or if it's a Xenoblade 3, I do think that is still in development. But I think their next game is a new project and will be a brand new IP, which is good, right? Because Nintendo need new IP, and I think the Monolith are one of those studios that can create really enticing new worlds that have never been seen before, with strong characters and storylines, and the type of thing that obviously Nintendo themselves don't really excel in. So yeah, that is my prediction for Monolith Soft.
Nice.
Okay.
Right. Shall we move on to my more out there predictions?
Sure.
Nintendogs hasn't been around in a while.
No.
And I think it's going to make a big comeback.
Good.
But not in the way everyone thinks, because I think it's going to be Nintendo Labo VR Nintendogs.
Oh shit, that's good.
It's going to happen.
Good prediction, Bally.
And you're going to wear... It's going to be... You're going to build a dog head mask that you basically use. And not only is this head mask, like, obviously a head mask, but it's augmented reality, because this is the second Labo VR set coming out. Okay. There will be a lot of people who already own the first set. So the two switches can wirelessly interact, and because they can have like the infrared sensor on them, it's going to be like augmented reality where you look at each other and you're both Nintendogs just looking at each other in virtual reality. And then it's going to also come with like some more cardboard cut out Nintendogs that have like little sensors on them, so it's like more augmented reality little dogs that you can play with. And yeah, when you're in this world, it's like that playroom that is in Nintendo.
Yeah, like when you control the Mario Kart and driving it around. Type
so thing. I think, and there's going to be like lots of little toys in there you can play with, throw balls, do this sort of thing. And yeah, VR Nintendogs, wireless linking up, playing together, whole lot of fun. And it's going to be like a similar price point to the first Labo VR set that we bought, like 30 quid, 30, 40 quid. It's not going to be like 60, 70, 80 like those first sets were, which were a bit crazy. So yeah,
man, that's
Nintendogs.
Good. I like it. Yeah, to be fair, I think this is 100% a thing Nintendo would do. I don't think it's actually as crazy as you maybe frame it. I do think that the element that is crazy is E3, because Nintendo tend to not talk about Labo and associated products at E3. Like, it's not the arena for that. But this is totally a Wednesday morning press release and trailer that gets dropped, and everyone's like, "What the fuck, Nintendo?" And yeah, they're doing it. Yeah, I like that idea. I think that Nintendo are going to continue to add a lot of VR things to a lot of their games, right? Like, we had the Mario and Zelda. They just announced Smash Brothers. I think even a game like Animal Crossing is going to have a VR component to it. You know, a lot of their first-party games, I think they're just going to start messing around and just throwing VR things in there to give it a bit more value proposition for people.
The new Amiibo is VR.
Yeah, basically, just like add a VR mode to everything you make, essentially, and some will be good, some will be bad, but ultimately, you know, they've got to try and make it a product that is maybe a bit more targeted towards a wider audience than just the kid market, which seems like the Labo generally is, but yeah, I eventually I think Nintendo will do proper VR, but for now, why not? Why not bring back Nintendogs in a way that makes a lot of sense, and that is Labo VR. Cool. My final one, I wouldn't call it that crazy, but it's more of a dream. It's more of like a personal dream, and that is that Retro's project will finally be revealed, and it is not Star Fox Racing. It's not a new Donkey Kong. It's not anything like that. It is in fact the game that we've all been waiting for.
Codename Steam 2.
No, but like, sure, I'd take that. It's the next Wario Land game. Yeah. Retro Studios are making the next Wario Land. It's going to have some kind of gorgeous art style and will build on the platforming brilliance of their previous project, Tropical Freeze. Wario will also team up with Waluigi in specific co-op levels. It'll have a co-op campaign as well that will also have online play.
And you can play with strangers, but not your friends.
Exactly, yes, because who would want to be your friend? Look, Waluigi is not your friend, Bally. No one should be playing as Waluigi. No. He's nobody's friend. He's a stranger, and you should play with strangers to play with Waluigi. That's the way it should work. Yes, it will be hailed as the greatest platformer ever made and will win Game of the Year at every outlet imaginable. I need a new Wario Land. I need a new Wario Land, Bally. I need a new Wario Land. I need Retro Studios who make very good platformers to make a very good platformer in a very good platforming series. I need a new Wario Land.
It's a very strong possibility we're going to get to the end of the C3 and still have no idea what they've been working on.
Yeah, no, it's a very strong possibility that whatever the hell Retro Studios worked on for the past 5 years got cancelled and scrapped, and now they're just working on Metroid Prime 4, and we will never see any proof of anything they ever worked on. There was that thing going around when Reggie showed off his goodbye gift, and there was the picture of Retro Studios thing that they sent him, and it was very obviously covering up a character which had a robot arm, and people were speculating as to what the hell that character was, if that's a project that is still ongoing.
Do you think it was purposefully like put there to make everyone?
I feel like it.
Or is it the Starbucks coffee cup in Game of Thrones? Just for Nintendo.
Yeah, maybe.
Hard to tell. Like, it could be.
I don't think it is hard to tell actually, because if they did send him something like that and it did have that character on there that is a new character, then Reggie would know when he's taking social media pictures to not do that. And I think he was maybe being a bit cheeky about it and showing it off. But
well done, Reggie.
Well, thanks, Reggie. It's your last gift to us before you leave is to leak something yourself, which is good. It's very good. But yeah, I mean, look, Bally, we both love Wario Land. I think we're in agreement that our favorite platforming series from Nintendo are Donkey Kong and Wario Land, and who better to give the Wario Land franchise to than the people who revived Donkey Kong?
Absolutely.
In Retro Studios. Because at this point, I kind of don't want Goodfield to make the Wario Land game. I kind of feel like they've gone off the deep end and they're just making really bad platformers with Yoshi and Kirby. Not that they're bad.
They're barely platformers, are they? They're just
exactly. They're not even platformers. Like, they're not bad games. And I don't want to say that, but they're not what I want.
They're easy games.
They're not what I want in a platforming type of game. You know, like that's not what I personally look for or get satisfaction from in that type of game. They're just not making the type of experience that I want anymore in terms of 2D platformers. I think that if we're looking for challenge, if we're looking for great design, really great art direction, Wario Land would not be better placed at a studio than Retro Studios in this day and age, I think.
Right.
So yeah, I would love it if they got a chance to make that series. But ultimately, like, Wario Land's just not a big series. It's just not a series for Nintendo that does very well.
It's been a long time since we had one.
It has been. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Do you have any other like things that we want to chat about in terms of ones we haven't mentioned yet?
Is Amiibo gonna show up?
Amiibo? I doubt it. I feel like they have very much turned the corner on Amiibo in terms of Mario Maker. They're not really mentioning it there. I think that it's kind of just a relic at this point of the Wii U era that they kind of, maybe they'll support with some rare exceptions, but for the most part, I don't think Amiibo is a big part of their strategy going forward. What are your thoughts on Luigi's Mansion 3? Neither of us have any predictions on Luigi.
Yeah, I really hope they go back to the format of 1. Having played 1 this year, it's just a stronger way to explore in a mansion. Like, it's just more fun. And
structurally, I think it's better for that series.
And if they do stick to the levels, they need some goddamn checkpoints, because just like dying in Luigi's Mansion 2 and then going back to the start of the level, it's like, come on, like,
yeah, it's frustrating.
It's ridiculous. So
yeah.
I like the multi-mansion thing or something like that.
Or the notion that it's just a really tall tower that you're going up.
Yeah, I like that.
The artwork kind of suggests, potentially.
I didn't notice that, but that is interesting. Yeah. And they're just like environments changing a lot, mixing up the types of ghosts that you're facing, mixing up battles with puzzles and getting a good balance and exploration in there.
Basically, just take all the elements from the first 2 games and take out the bad parts and keep the good parts. And
portrait ghosts. I want some portrait ghosts.
Yeah,
bring them back.
Yeah, I would love that
because they've got so much character. They've all got backstories. They all you tackle each one in a different way. Like, bring some of that back.
Yeah. When do we think that's coming? Do we think, and this is a question, right? We talk about the lineup for the end of this year and how it's got to go. Something's got to go. Like, it feels like something is going to get delayed.
Yeah. I don't know why, and James Jones on RFN suggested it would be Luigi's Mansion, but I kind of agree with him. Like, it just feels like the one that would slip if something slipped, and I don't know why. Maybe because it's the least best-selling out of a lot of those, although maybe Astral Chain might not sell as...
The thing is, Luigi's Mansion does not feel like a big blockbuster fall game. It feels like a March, April type of game. Yeah. It feels like a February type of game.
Also, when Nintendo say, oh yeah, this game's coming out, and you see nothing, you think... Nintendo normally shows stuff when they have stuff, generally speaking.
You also think, like, we've been here before with Yoshi multiple times, where, like, one E3, they just don't even show it, Like, they revealed it at 2017, then 2018, they didn't even show it at E3, and then it came out earlier this year. So that is potentially another indication that, it's actually been delayed, that it's not coming. And if it doesn't show up at this E3, then we know that it's delayed to 2020, and it's not happening.
Otherwise, because Link's Awakening might get pushed.
I don't think so. That's a remake, and I think that's a pretty safe bet. I think.
And either way, both of them are on my fancy critic list, so I don't want to.
If Luigi's Mansion slips, then you're losing points, son. I don't really know what to do about Link's Awakening in terms of Nintendo's E3 presence, because unless there's something like drastically new or different, I don't really want to see much of that game. Like, I don't really need to. It's a remake of a game we already know. We already know what it looks like. I just kind of want to play it when it comes out, and I'm not sure I really care about spending time on it in this Nintendo presentation, because it's a known quantity. It's a remake of a Zelda game.
I hope they just do a fresh trailer. Keep it short, keep it sweet. Don't show too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does it really matter if they show too much? It's a remake. We know what that game is,
I know, but the way in which they redo some of the
some of the bosses and things like that might be fun to see first time. I get you, but
there might be an extra dungeon or something they might talk about. We'll see. But I want to see the most on
like the color dungeon in Link's Awakening DX. This is a game which has kind of already been remade, so this is kind of the second remake of this game in a weird way.
It'd be cool.
What other games do we have that haven't been chatted about? I mean, Astral Chain is coming in August. They'll probably check in with Astral Chain. I want to know a bit more about that game, the world and some of the characters and stuff like that, which I'm sure they'll do a better job of explaining it a bit more. And yeah, Fire Emblem. I think Fire Emblem will get touched on. I do think personally that Fire Emblem is the type of series that gets its own direct. They've done that in the past. And, I feel because it's end of July, second week of July feels like the time when they would put out a Fire Emblem specific direct to go into the real bullshit minutia that series fans care about.
It's got quite a core following, as large as that core following is. Like, it is quite
definitely
a good game to have a specific direct in a similar way to Pokemon, like as mainstream as Pokemon is.
I imagine like a bunch of time will be spent on Treehouse playing Fire Emblem Three Houses, but I don't imagine they'll spend more than a couple of minutes on it in the direct. I think it'll get a trailer, it will get a bit more like, hey, here's a new feature, blah.
I think we'll see a ton about what's new in Animal Crossing and how that works.
Animal Crossing to me is the crown jewel of this presentation for them. Like it feels like it's the big game they have this year that isn't Pokemon, and it's the one that deserves the most attention, I think, in terms of explaining it, going over new aspects, stuff like that. Much as like I'm not a big fan when it comes to Animal Crossing hype. Like, I don't think Animal Crossing is a game I get hyped about. I love playing Animal Crossing, but it's not a game that I'm like, oh shit, new trailer for Animal Crossing, yo! Like,
but when it comes out, you play it for a few hours on the first day, but then you're like, I've run out of things to do, and then you play another 20 minutes the next day, and you play. So it's got an inbuilt slow burn no matter how you play it almost.
Like Animal Crossing is a great series. I love Animal Crossing, but it's not Smash Brothers or Zelda. It's not a game that is very good at building a hype train behind, if you know what I mean. Like it's a very low key game. It's a very chilled experience. It's not like the big blockbuster thing. It's akin to like the difference between a new kids Disney movie and a Marvel film. Like I loved Aladdin, like the remake of Aladdin. I went and saw that. I wasn't hyped to go see Aladdin, but like I came out of it loving it. I was hyped to see Avengers Endgame. Like that's the difference I'm talking about here.
It's a known quantity.
Exactly. For sure.
We've not mentioned Smash characters. Are we getting one or two?
No, we haven't. I think two. I do think two, and I think that it's a nice sandwich, right? Like, and they've done this before. The sandwich has worked well. In the Smash Direct where they revealed Simon and Richter and King K. Rool, they sandwiched the entire Direct with Smash reveals. I think they did a similar thing in, was it 2013? Either 2013 or 2014, where they revealed the Mii Fighter at the start of the Direct, which had the compilation of Reggie and Iwata punching each other in the face, and then they closed it with Palutena. So they have done the sandwich before. I think the sandwich is strong. I think the sandwich will once again rear its head. And the question is, man, because there's rumours flying around about Banjo-Kazooie right now, and hold me God, dear Christ, if it happens, I still feel like it's too crazy to happen. I still do. But the Microsoft Nintendo connections, the thing with Cuphead, Ori inevitably happening, it feels like conditions, especially for this E3.
Cuphead,
especially for
Ori.
E3. No, the Cuphead and Ori's not happening. No. Not as Smash characters. Like, Banjo is the character. If not Banjo, like, Master Chief would be stupid and ridiculous. That's not happening. That's too ridiculous. And I think Minecraft Steve I'd be very fucking annoyed by, because he's not God, but one of my most frustrating things in video games is people treating Minecraft Steve like he's a fucking character. He's not a character. He's an avatar.
He's a symbol of a generation.
Minecraft does not have characters.
You have to give the younger generation symbol.
Hold me back, Bally. Hold me back. I'm gonna explode from frustration, because Minecraft Steve I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. So please don't do that, Microsoft. Please give us Banjo-Kazooie instead. Give us characters, beloved characters that people care about. Yes. Realistically, everyone's talking about Erdrick, Dragon Quest, like a Dragon Quest character. Yeah. Is it the protagonist from Dragon Quest 11? I think that is a possibility as opposed to Erdrick, because like, fun as Erdrick is, the only representation of him that we have is like artwork from the cover of the first Dragon Quest game, or potentially like fucking Sprite. So you can't really do much with that. Like,
do an actual Sprite character, like 2D, like Game & Watch, but actual Sprite.
The question is, like, Erdrick, the original Erdrick is from Dragon Quest 3, right? Whereas Dragon Quest 1 is Lotto, who is his, like, descendant, essentially. And then Dragon Quest 2 is, like, the descendant of Lotto. So the first original Dragon Quest trilogy has a lot of, like, characters that are basically the same character, but just descended from a previous version. Erdrick being the one that is kind of the named character within that series, but ding 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 ding. Hi, this is NBZ here, editing the podcast, realizing that past NBZ was very stupid in his assessment of Erdrick. The name Lotto is in fact a translation of the name Erdrick, and when they localized the game on the Game Boy, they changed the name to Lotto in the Western version of the series, and so Lotto and Erdrick is in fact the same name. That's me being an idiot and me clarifying. So there you go. Maybe Erdrick will be in Smash Brothers, who knows? Maybe they'll call him Lotto in the European version, because that would be a dumb thing Nintendo would do, because that's European localization. Anyway, back to the show. Ding, 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 ding. He has a look to him. I can imagine what he would look like in 3D. If I'm honest, it's just fucking boring. He's a sword character. He's a JRPG sword character, and I think that, like, as much as I like Fire Emblem and I love all the Fire Emblem characters in the game, we don't need another sword character. We've got Link, we've got fucking Shulk. There are so many fucking sword characters in Smash Brothers. Even Joker has a knife. It's not a sword, but it's a sharp goddamn object. Yeah. We've had enough of sword characters.
I want Terra.
I'd rather play. Oh, Terra would be great. Terra would be awesome, but it's just not going to happen. Square Enix clearly have made a decision about which is their favourite child, and Final Fantasy VII is their favourite child. Final Fantasy VI is not. Sad as that is, it's just the decision they've made over the years. And 7 was the big game. It was the one that made RPGs mainstream in the West, and that's going to count for something. We already have Cloud in the game, for God's sake, so that it's another sword character. There you go. Like, Banjo-Kazooie is the one I want. Any other Smash character at this point, to be quite frank, is gravy, because they've given us everything. Like, they've given us the globe. Like, it is just, it is quite frankly ridiculous. People are calling for Dante from Devil May Cry. I'd be down with that. Playing Devil May Cry 5, give me Dante with that fucking motorcycle as a weapon, please. That would be very fun. I would enjoy that. It's a Japanese character.
I think there's quite a lot. There's now quite a lot of humanoid characters.
Yes.
Like, I would like to see more beasts, monsters.
Yeah,
animals.
like weird, not actual, like, traditional characters.
A lot of the newcomers are, humans.
Yeah, yeah. I get you. I do feel like that's an issue potentially. And Smash Brothers is known for having just weird, off-the-wall characters, even though most of them like stand on two legs. We do have things like Ivysaur thrown in there, which is a fun, different thing. Any ideas that you have at all for Smash characters? Or have we literally hit the bottom of the barrel?
We've hit everyone, but I want Andy. I really want Andy from Advance Wars. Just like a nice nod.
Give us a nod, man. If you're not going to make a fucking Advance Wars game, at least do what you've done with Captain Falcon.
Yeah, keep the hype going by just promoting him in Smash Brothers. Like,
right.
Just keep that train going.
Yeah, it would be nice. I want that for you, Bally. I really do. Like, and I think that Advance Wars as a character, there's so much you could do with it. Like, it could be such a weird character, just so many different attack
as humanoid
options.
As they are, they're very cartoony. Like, their proportions are all cartoony and weird. Unlike Fire Emblem, where they are more humanoid than perhaps
definitely
like Advance Wars. But yeah, shall we run through some predictions that were sent in?
Oh, sure, yeah. The last one I want to mention is that I had another stupid prediction that I didn't really flesh out. All I said was Watch Dogs 3 is obviously going to get announced this E3, and it's been leaked already. But Ubisoft will, in the Nintendo presentation, announce Watch Dogs 2 for Switch instead. So Switch owners get Watch Dogs 2 instead of Watch Dogs 3.
That is so going to happen. That is so going to happen. I should try an Ubisoft open world game. I've not played one in a long time, so
not since Assassin's Creed. So yeah,
right,
cool.
We have an email in from B King, who is from Sweden, and I guess we should just talk about each bullet point as it comes. Hey guys, I'd like to share some of my predictions for E3, some of my safer predictions. With Pokemon and Mario Maker 2 having had directs pretty close to E3, I think they got most of that information out of the way so they can focus on some other titles that will release later this year. That said, I still think both games will get a shorter trailer just to remind us that they will be coming out this year. Yeah, that often does happen. They get a quick little, remember that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, the thing with Mario Maker is they still have the blank space to fill that people are speculating about.
Yeah,
so that's the question mark there. For sure.
He goes on, for Mario Maker, I think they will only show Mario 2 as the other extra game style next to 3D World. They will also spend a good amount of time in the Treehouse livestream showing off the game even more.
Oh yeah, we'll get loads of Treehouse on Mario Maker.
And we talked about this, like Mario 2's tile set is so unique that it would make sense that it would sit next to 3D World.
Yes,
So for Pokemon, since I'm writing this before the Sword and Shield Direct has happened, I find it a bit harder to say what they would show at E3. But I expect the Direct before E3 to show some legendary second stage evolution of the starters, more of the world, 1 or 2 new Pokemon, and a glimpse of a part of the story like the evil team or something like that. At E3, I think they would then have a shorter trailer showing off the world even more and the whole gym stadium mechanic. At the Treehouse livestream, I believe they will also have a smaller section where they'll show off the game a bit and talk to the developers, similar to what they did with Sun and Moon. He pretty much nailed it with what they
pretty much. Yeah, I mean, we still don't know what the evolutions for the starters are. I think, again, I predicted that we wouldn't see those, and I think that's the kind of thing that they do save until closer to release, in terms of final evolutions of starters and stuff like that. So.
Considering Mario Maker and Pokemon won't take up that much time, I'm expecting Luigi's Mansion 3, Link's Awakening, and Fire Emblem 3 Houses all getting more extensive trailers where they'll show more gameplay. I hope they won't go into details with Fire Emblem as much as they did with Smash last year, because they probably want to have a dedicated July-August Direct on 3 Houses. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I predicted as well with Fire Emblem, so I agree.
Bayonetta 3 will have a trailer showing off more gameplay, but will be pushed back to summer 2020.
Now, there's a game that we did not discuss at all, and I think the reason, really, for me, is that Platinum have Astral Chain, and Astral Chain is coming out this year in August, right?
You announce a game that you're working on is going to come out, and then you say, actually, we're working on this other thing that's coming out sooner. It's quite unusual.
Yeah, it is, but I do think that Bayonetta is unique in that it is a much bigger name, and so you gain a lot from saying, hey, this big franchise is going to come back. It'll take some time, but like it's good to have in the mind share of people who are buying Switches to know like Bayonetta's around. Whereas Astral Chain is like, I don't know, it's this new IP that no one's heard of. So you can very much work on it in the background and then reveal it very close to release, and then just let people have their opinion on it, which is basically what they're doing. But because of Astral Chain, I don't think we're seeing any Bayonetta 3 until the Game Awards, probably. I think Game Awards is where they'll show it off, because that's where they announced it. So yeah.
Ori and the Blind Forest will be announced for Switch and will be coming out later this year. I'd say an October release.
Now here's my thing. I very much think that Ori and the Blind Forest is going to be one of the biggest shadow drops of E3. I feel like whether it gets announced at Microsoft or at Nintendo, it will 100% be what Hollow Knight was last year, which is it's out on the eShop today.
The first game, to be clear, not the second, right?
No. The Blind Forest is going to be the game that gets announced for Switch. I don't think they're going to announce Will of the Wisps for Switch just yet. I feel like it might come in the future, but for now it will be Ori and the Blind Forest that will have a shadow drop. It will be day and date coming out on Switch on that day. I think Will of the Wisps will get a release date for like September or something, for Xbox and PC and things. So
I don't know how I'm going to fit in that game, but I'll try. Right,
Bally, you will drop everything else for it.
I would like to. I'm very excited for that game. Definitely.
Look, I'm going to be frank, Bally. There is no other game that I will drop more for this year than the sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. It's just
okay.
I just will.
A Link's Awakening themed Switch will also be shown off, similar to the Pokemon Let's Go themes, where the Joy-Con have a color scheme related to the game and Link themed back cover.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure. I don't know, hardware stuff, I generally tend to not think happen around E3 for Nintendo. So I don't think
they often spend a ton of time talking about hardware, things like that, in like these shorter directs where they're like, look at this special edition, especially Pokemon.
Yeah, and special editions usually tie to specific directs, like with Pokemon today.
Yeah, we just saw what's coming with Pokemon today. It's like
a steelbook.
A steelbook,
yeah. Along those lines. Yeah.
A steelbook. Anyway, right. The rumored cheaper Switch model won't be showing off at E3. I think we know that already. I believe they would wait with showing off and releasing that closer to the launch of Pokemon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Show
Definitely.
it near Pokemon. Get your bundles then. Yeah.
Yep.
That makes
pretty
sense.
much. I agree with that.
Smaller, cheaper, whatever it's going to be. Some more out there predictions. Here we go. After they've shown off Link's Awakening, the screen will go black and a short trailer will start, giving us the first glimpse of the next 3D Zelda running in the same engines of Breath of the Wild. We will hear some voice acting, maybe suggesting that the game will be more story-focused than Breath of the Wild. The trailer ends with coming in 2020. That would be a real stupid, bold move for Nintendo to just end a 3D trailer of Zelda saying coming 2020 when we've been dragged across the coals so much for the last two 3D Zeldas. But I could imagine them doing it and us being like, oh, yeah, sure, 2022.
Yeah, sure. I believe 2020. Sure, Nintendo.
Sure.
Definitely. Sure.
Overwatch will be ported to Switch coming out later this year.
Please, Blizzard. Please. Also, Overwatch cross-account thing, so I can just take my account from PC and play it on Switch. Don't make me start again. I have so many skins. I
don't know whether it'll be like Overwatch or Ori or maybe something like the Metroid Prime trilogy, but I feel like one of those three or two of those three, or maybe even all three will get shoved to spring, summer, just because this year is ridiculously dense with stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like all of it coming is just complete overload when they've got a whole next year to fill, which is at the moment is very quiet. So I don't know. We'll see. Xenoblade Chronicles will get an HD remaster for Switch coming early 2020. Yeah, same theory like I've just said. Like I feel like a game like Xenoblade Chronicles remaster, I should say.
Well, they already remastered it on 3DS. Well,
that's true. But yeah, I feel like that might come next year. But anyway, the show will close with the Star Fox Racers game from Retro, and a tiny bit of gameplay will be shown at the Treehouse livestream. The trailer will end with coming in 2020. I'm looking forward to hearing your predictions ahead of E3. I just want to say that I recently became a patron and really have enjoyed the Patreon exclusive podcasts you have put out. Keep up the good work and let us hope Nintendo give us a good E3 presentation with lots of surprises. Greetings from Sweden.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, BK, for becoming a patron. And
But yeah, Star Fox Racers, Star Fox Grand Prix. I'm not siding. I used to side with It's Real. I'm siding with that side less now. Like I think that it's
the rumors on it have died down. I don't know, man. Like
it was just a very well edited logo. Well done, whoever edited that logo.
I mean, that's the thing. You know, we exist in this period of time where leaks are so easily fabricated and so fucking convincing. Like, just, it's crazy how convincing leaks can be in this day and age. But they happen, and they continue to happen. The retro game is the one that keeps getting me, because
what is it?
If Retro Studios are now working on Metroid Prime 4, that means that they must have wrapped development on whatever the hell they were working on. And this is the question mark, right? If whatever they were working on is cancelled and was a project that didn't come together, why would Nintendo trust them with Metroid Prime 4, right? Like, is the thing I can't really square in my mind is, like, if it is the case that they had a project that went under, why then would Nintendo be like, oh no, it's fine, let's just give our most important game
maybe they've inserted more people into the project or something, like they're overseeing it more closely. I don't know. I agree. It is weird. It's weird.
It's really weird. It's really weird because Retro, like, have they made something that is now basically finished, in which case it should be coming out this year, right? Like, if it's done, it should be releasing this year, unless, again, Nintendo are doing the thing where they're holding stuff back to fluff out next year's lineup, just because this year is pretty chock-a-block. That's the only reason I could see is them deliberately holding it back for a better time window for release. But But outside of that, like, I don't know, it's tricky. Retro Studios, like, they're an enigma. They're an enigma that is impossible to solve. Yeah. Cool.
Weird.
Well, there you go. That is a lot of thoughts on Nintendo's E3. Exciting. It's only a few days now, and I'll be there front line watching it. I'll be streaming myself watch it as well, probably. So you can watch me watch it live at twitch.tv/LordMBZ if you want to head over there. And you can follow me over there and stuff like that. And obviously, the plan for next time, Bally, is that after the Nintendo Direct on that Tuesday, we will record our reaction podcast, which will be however long we take to talk through all the things Nintendo announce from E3, have a big chat, put that out that evening as soon as possible. As soon as we record it, as soon as you get home from work, whatever, we're going to record that, and then I will edit it together and put it up on the feed, so look out for it. It's going to be available on Tuesday the 11th of June.
Is it at 6 p.m. our time, the Direct? UK
I believe
time?
It's 5 p.m. our time.
5 p.m. Oh, God. Right, okay.
So, yeah, it's 9 a.m. Bally, maybe see if you can take an extra hour off work in the afternoon or something.
Good idea.
That'd be a good thing to do. So that's the plan. The plan is that we watch Nintendo's E3 stuff, record the show then and there. If you have questions about it, send them in ASAP, basically, because we'll basically be recording pretty soon after that happens. Maybe we'll do a Twitter thing where we're like, hey, do you have any thoughts, etc. Get people to tweet them, which is a nice segue to our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at TNL Podcast. That's where you go for all the updates on things we're doing. Again, stuff we're doing around E3. We should probably do a tweet being like, hey, here's what we're doing, when you should expect the episode, for people in case they forget, things like that.
We can pin that.
We can pin that. And you can find me on Twitter tweeting bullshit all the time. I'm at LordNBZ. Bally, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91.
Perfect. You can obviously support us in various ways. One of the most prominent ways to do so is via our Patreon, which is patreon.com/thisnintendolife, and we would like to thank some of our patrons for supporting us, Bally.
Yes, thank you to our two $10 tier patrons. They are my fiancée Caroline and Atari Alex. Thank you for your support, and thank you to all of our other patrons. We hugely appreciate it. Like, we do this show for free, and it takes up a lot of time.
And thanks to people like B King, who have just signed up and are enjoying some new podcasts that we've given as well.
So we do 12 exclusive podcasts a year. If you want access to those, head on over to patreon.com/thisnintendolife. Definitely a lot to check out.
And if you go over there now, then you have a backlog that you can go through and go through a bunch of those. So,
ton of episodes.
Yeah. Great. You can obviously find the show in various places. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify. Find us on any podcasting app, anything like that. As we mentioned last time, now is a great time to review the show. Give us some nice reviews there so people find it around E3 and let them know, hey, this is a podcast that is good and people like and enjoy listening to.
Spread across the internet on all those forums where they're like, hey, I need to, what's a Nintendo podcast I should listen to cover E3?
What's a Nintendo podcast that isn't owned by a corporation like IGN or GameSpot?
We're the true.
What's a grassroots Nintendo podcast by real gamers? It's This Nintendo Life.
We're grassroots, we're
real gamers.
We're in it for the music.
We're in it for the video games.
In it for the video games.
Yeah.
I'm not owned by anyone.
We're not owned by anyone. Nobody. No one. Fantastic. I think that's pretty much going to close us out. Bally, so close. I'm so excited.
I was going to say we should mention that. So this is episode 145. Episode 146, the next normal show. Between now and then, we're going to watch as much E3 coverage as possible, especially Nintendo, and we're going to have another sort of debrief chatting about some of the stuff that we see in like the treehouse and the smaller things.
I'm sure there will be a lot of like little bitty pieces of news that come out following
like that
E3,
final announcement of Mother 3 that they'll save till the very last treehouse.
Yes, exactly.
Event,
it'll be like 4 p.m. on Friday or Thursday, and
everyone's
be like,
packing up, and then
Reggie
says, "I'm back for one last."
I'm back, motherfuckers!
I told you I was going to release Mother 3.
There's a prediction, Bally. Will Reggie make an appearance at Nintendo's E3 live stream? Will he drop in to say hi?
I don't know. Yes.
I feel like he's going to go to E3 just
he's
for bands.
He's too synonymous with that Smash Brothers.
I don't know. I do feel like he may just want to give it space. Like, let Doug Bowser have his time, It's one of those things, but
yeah.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Hey.
Anyway.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for listening. It's a fun time in the industry. It's exciting. I'm jazzed. I think Ubisoft are probably going to show something as well. Some follow up to Mario plus Rabbids Nintendo tie-in.
Can they do it 3 years in a row?
Yeah. Miyamoto show up, say hello over there, and fun stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. And we'll see you guys very, very soon. So thank you once again for listening. And we'll be back soon. See you then. Thank you. Bye-bye. The musical interlude used on today's show was the main theme from Sushi Striker, Way of the Sushido. Copyright Nintendo 2018.